All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're all about taking those sources that pique your curiosity and, really digging into them, unpacking the main ideas so you can grasp the essence without, well, having to go through the whole thing yourself, right? So, for all of you out there who love getting straight to the core insights efficiently, well, let me tell you, we've got some seriously fascinating stuff to unravel today.
You got that right. We're about to dive headfirst into a work that's, well, it's centuries old, but still incredibly influential. It shapes strategic thinking in all sorts of fields.
I mean, we're talking military campaigns, business negotiations, you name it.
It's amazing how relevant it remains.
Exactly. So today we're going deep into excerpts from Lionel Giles's 1910 translation of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And let me tell you, this is not some dusty old military manual just sitting on a shelf
Oh,
somewhere.
no, not at all.
This is a cornerstone. It's a foundational text on strategy. It offers these perspectives on conflict and competition that are still incredibly relevant, even surprising in today's world.
For sure.
So, in this deep dive, our mission is to explore some of those core principles from the early chapters, to really see what wisdom we can extract. And hey, maybe even challenge a few of our own assumptions about strategy along the way. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan. I think what really grabs you right off the bat is how Sun Tzu starts.
Hmm.
I mean, he makes it crystal clear how important he considers warfare to be.
Oh, absolutely. He hits you with this powerful statement right out of the gate. The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It's not just some side concern, it's absolutely crucial. It's fundamental to a nation's well-being.
Doesn't mince words.
Not at all. And then he just drives home the gravity of it. He calls it, and I'm quoting here, a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin.
Sets the tone. Right.
Oh, it absolutely does. It frames the entire discussion. This is not something to be taken lightly. It demands careful, ongoing consideration. What do you think? Why was it so important for him to establish this significance right at the very beginning?
Well, I think it's all about setting the stage for the reader, right?
Right.
Emphasizing that strategic thinking in conflict. It's not just about battlefield tactics.
Yeah.
It's about the survival of the state, the prosperity of a nation. And by making the stakes so clear, so stark, Sun Tzu forces leaders, forces anyone really, to approach this subject with the utmost care, the utmost diligence, because their decisions, well, they have huge consequences.
Huge, yeah. All right, so after making it abundantly clear how vital the art of war is, Sun Tzu goes on to outline what he calls the five constant factors. Think of them as the fundamental elements that govern warfare, the things any leader has to consider when thinking about conflict. These five factors are the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method and discipline. Let's unpack that first one, the moral law, because it might not mean exactly what we think of today when we hear that term.
It's definitely not about abstract ethics, not in the modern sense. It's much more pragmatic, much more vital for a ruler. Sun Tzu describes it as what causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger.
Wow.
Right. And what's really fascinating here is the emphasis on unity, this deep trust between the leader and the people. I mean, it's a bond so strong that it goes beyond even the fear of death.
That's powerful. So how do you think this idea of a unified populace, a people willing to follow their leader without question, how does that translate to more modern contexts, like, say, in the business world or social movements?
Makes you think about the power of shared vision, right? Strong leadership. In a business, maybe it's the employees who really believe in the company's mission
Mm.
and are willing to put in the extra effort even when things get tough.
Yeah.
Or in a social movement, it could be that unwavering commitment to a cause, the kind that binds people together even in the face of huge risks. Seems like that deep alignment, whether it's ancient warfare or something we see today, it creates a powerful force, a resilient force.
I like that, a resilient force. Okay, then we have heaven. Now, this one might sound a little, metaphorical at first,
A bit out there.
but Sun Tzu's actually talking about some very real practical things, natural conditions, the environment.
Absolutely. By heaven, he means all those environmental factors that are, well, out of our control, but they have a direct impact on military operations. You talk about night and day, cold and heat, the seasons. I mean, think about it. A campaign that doesn't account for a harsh winter or the challenges of navigating at night, it could easily fall apart. History is full of examples where ignoring these seemingly obvious factors led to disaster.
You can't just launch a massive offensive in the middle of winter without thinking about how the snow, the ice, the freezing temperatures will affect your troops, your supply lines, everything. It's basic awareness, adapting your strategies to the natural world. And then we have Earth, which seems a little more straightforward. It's about the physical terrain where the conflict might happen.
Yeah, Earth is all about the geography. The distances involved in moving troops and supplies, the type of terrain, open plains, dense forests, narrow mountain passes, and the dangers or the safety those landscapes offer.
It really dictates how things play out.
Absolutely. Terrain can dictate everything, from how fast you can move to the best spots for defense. You can get ambushed in a narrow pass, or open ground might favor cavalry charges. The lay of the land, it's a crucial factor in any strategy.
It's almost like the environment itself becomes part of the conflict.
Right.
Okay, next up is the commander. This one focuses on the qualities and the skills of the leader.
Front and center.
Sun Tzu identifies 5 essential virtues for a commander: wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness.
That's a tall order.
It really is, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, how important is each of those virtues for leading an army effectively?
Well, they all play a unique and vital role. Wisdom, that allows the commander to make good judgments, anticipate what the enemy might do. Sincerity, that builds trust.
Credibility.
Yeah, with the troops, with allies. Benevolence fosters loyalty, keeps morale high. Courage enables decisive action, especially when it matters most. And strictness, well, that ensures discipline, order. That's essential for any fighting force to be cohesive, to be effective.
If you're lacking in any of these areas, you become vulnerable.
Absolutely. I mean, a commander who's courageous but not wise could lead their troops right into a trap.
Right into it. And a leader who's all about benevolence but lacks strictness, well, they might be popular, but their army might not be very effective.
Exactly. You need that balance.
Finally, we have method and discipline. This one sounds like the practical, organizational backbone of any military operation.
It's the nuts and bolts, making sure the army runs smoothly and gets things done. We're talking about clear structures, subdivisions within the army, a well-defined chain of command, ranks among officers, and of course, maintaining those supply lines. That's crucial.
The lifeline of the army.
Without a doubt. Got to keep the army fed, equipped, and sustained. And then there's the careful management of military spending. You can't just throw money around.
Right, got to be smart about it.
Without a solid method, without discipline, even the most spirited army can fall apart. Logistics failures, internal chaos, it can all unravel pretty quickly.
Yeah. So to summarize, a general who really understands and can manage these 5 constant factors, the moral law, heaven, earth, their own qualities as a commander, and method and discipline, they're setting themselves up for success. But if a leader neglects or misunderstands these principles, well, they're making failure much more likely. It's amazing how complex and multifaceted military leadership was even in ancient times, and how much of that still applies today.
It really is. And building on this understanding of the fundamentals, Sun Tzu introduces what he calls the 7 considerations. It's all about assessing military conditions before any fighting even begins. It's about doing your homework, comparing and analyzing everything.
Due diligence.
Exactly. So why do you think he put so much emphasis on this pre-battle assessment?
I think it's all about minimizing risk, making informed decisions. By evaluating the situation carefully beforehand, a leader can get a much clearer picture of their chances of winning, and maybe even avoid costly battles that aren't necessary. So what are these 7 critical questions that Sun Tzu says a leader needs to ask and answer?
They're like a framework for a pre-conflict analysis. You got to be thorough. So first, which sovereign has the stronger moral law?
So going back to that unity between ruler and the people.
Right. Second, which general has greater ability? It's a
Right.
direct assessment of leadership, who's got the skills. Third, with whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? That's all about those environmental and geographical factors we talked about.
Right. Heaven and earth.
Fourth, on which side is discipline most rigorously enforced, emphasizing order, obedience to commands?
Tight ship.
Fifth, which army is stronger? Just a straightforward evaluation of military might, numbers, equipment, training, all of
The
that.
hard numbers.
Sixth, on which side are officers and men more highly trained? So focusing on the quality and the readiness of the troops. And finally, seventh, in which army is there the greater constancy both in reward and punishment? Meaning, is there a fair and consistent system that motivates the troops and keeps them in line?
Rewards and consequences.
Makes sense, right?
It really does. It forces a leader to take a hard, objective look at their own situation, but also at their opponents. No wishful thinking here.
Not at all.
It's about understanding the realities of the conflict. And this rigorous self-assessment, this comparison, it has a huge benefit, doesn't it? Sun Tzu says that by carefully considering these 7 factors, a leader can basically predict how things will turn out. They can foresee victory or defeat before the first shot is even fired.
It's about gaining insight into what's likely to happen. You can make better strategic decisions, maybe avoid battles you can't win, and improve your chances of success when you do have to fight. This proactive approach, it just highlights how important foresight and analytical thinking are in warfare.
It really does. And now we come to a principle that seems to be at the heart of Sun Tzu's philosophy: deception. He says it flat out. All warfare is based on deception. This isn't about occasionally misleading the enemy. It's presented as the foundation of how you approach conflict. What makes deception so central to his way of thinking?
I think Sun Tzu sees deception as essential because it allows a weaker force to overcome a stronger one. And it minimizes casualties and costs by exploiting the enemy's misperceptions. It's about gaining a strategic advantage through misinformation and surprise, not just brute force. And what's really insightful is how specific he is about how to use deception.
He gives concrete examples, right? He talks about appearing incapable when you're actually ready to attack, seeming inactive while you're deploying troops, making it look like you're far away when you're actually close, and vice versa. It's all about manipulating the enemy's intelligence, their expectations.
Exactly. You create this false narrative that they buy into, and that leads them to make mistakes. Then you exploit those mistakes, and there's a huge psychological element here.
The element of surprise, striking when and where they least expect it, that seems to be a recurring theme.
It keeps coming up.
So thorough preparation is key, along with meticulous planning and the ability to exploit any weaknesses or moments of unpreparedness on the enemy's side.
It's about being one step ahead.
All right, moving on from these fundamental principles, Sun Tzu then gets into a very practical and often underestimated aspect of war: the cost.
The price you pay.
He goes into great detail about the financial and human resources that war consumes, especially in long campaigns. He talks about the massive expenses of equipping and maintaining armies, from chariots and armored soldiers to things as small as glue and paint.
The little things add up.
They do, and those costs just balloon over time, putting a huge strain on a state's economy.
It's a reminder that war isn't some abstract game on a map.
It's real.
It has real consequences that affect everyone.
And it's not just money, right? Sun Tzu also emphasizes the impact on the soldiers themselves. Prolonged fighting, it dulls weapons, lowers morale, exhausts the troops.
They get worn down.
And he doesn't stop there. He points out that a state weakened by a long war, even if it wins, becomes vulnerable to other powers. It's like a domino effect.
It's a ripple effect, yeah.
The negative consequences of prolonged conflict, they go way beyond the battlefield.
They spread everywhere.
So even a victory can be a Pyrrhic victory, leaving the state weak and exposed. And this understanding of the high costs of war leads directly to Sun Tzu's emphasis on swift victory. He makes it clear that cleverness in warfare isn't about dragging things out.
No nation benefits from a long, drawn-out conflict.
And he says that only those who truly understand the destructive nature of war can understand how to wage it effectively.
And for him, effectiveness is all about speed.
The goal is a decisive victory, as quickly as possible, to minimize the costs, the human cost, and the economic cost. Prolonged conflict is bad, period.
Regardless of who wins in the end.
And he puts the weight of this responsibility on the leader. He says the leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate.
Heavy burden.
Huge responsibility. The decision to go to war, and even more importantly, how that war is fought, it has profound consequences for everyone.
The leader is accountable.
Accountable for the costs, the outcomes. So pursuing a swift, decisive victory, it's not just strategic, it's a moral imperative. Minimizing suffering, minimizing the drain on resources, those become central ethical considerations.
It's a different way of looking at it.
Finally, we get to what Sun Tzu presents as the pinnacle of military strategy: attacking by stratagem. This isn't about brute force, winning every battle. It's about achieving your objectives through clever planning, skillful maneuvering, ideally avoiding large-scale fighting altogether.
The ultimate goal is to take the enemy's country intact, not destroy it. And to capture their army, not annihilate it. It's a sophisticated mindset. It's about thinking long-term, beyond immediate wins.
It's about the big picture.
Exactly. And this leads to the idea of supreme excellence. That's breaking the enemy's will to fight without even engaging in major combat.
That's a dream, right?
It's the ultimate strategic triumph. achieving your goals while minimizing bloodshed and destruction just through intelligence and strategic thinking.
Sun Tzu outlines a hierarchy of approaches, with disrupting the enemy's plans at the top. Then comes preventing their forces from uniting, then attacking them in the field. And the least desirable option, laying siege to cities.
Lengthy, costly, destructive.
So the truly masterful leader, according to Sun Tzu, is the one who can subdue the enemy without big battles, capture cities without long sieges, and overthrow kingdoms through swift, well-planned operations. Complete victory with minimal losses. It's about outsmarting your opponent every step of the way.
It's a mental game as much as anything else.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into the early chapters of The Art of War, we've seen some really powerful, enduring principles. We talked about the importance of careful planning, constant analysis, the 5 constant factors that shape conflict, the necessity of deception, the high costs of prolonged war, and the ideal of achieving swift victory through stratagem.
And these ancient insights, they're not just for military strategy. They offer frameworks for all kinds of strategic challenges we face in life. Tough negotiations, complex projects, even everyday problems that need a thoughtful approach.
So for you, our listeners, the learners who are all about gaining knowledge efficiently, think about this. How can you apply these principles to a challenge you're facing right now? Understand your own terrain, know your enemy, whether that's a competitor, an obstacle, or even something within yourself. And maybe prioritize strategic thinking, maybe even a little cleverness, over direct confrontation.
Think about which of Sun Tzu's insights resonates most with your own experiences.
Dive deeper into this text. You might find a fresh, surprisingly effective perspective on achieving your goals, whatever your field of battle might be.